This is Micah Lieberman again, doing an interview with somebody interesting to me, and I think interesting to you, especially if you work in clinical trial innovation and clinical research or health literacy. So this is Micah from Scope. Today, I have Laurie Myers from Merck. She is the Senior Director of Health Literacy Strategy and Innovation, and we met at Scope. Laurie, you were a keynote at Scope. I think you told me 2020. I don't even remember, but I think it was 2020.
That's correct.
And we talked about health literacy, why it matters, what it is. But now we're here now. So I think what we're talking about is, what is it? So let's talk about 2020. What you talked about, like the definition has kind of changed a little bit. So tell me, before I go deeper, say hello and then tell us what you think health literacy means for us.
Hello, and thank you so much for having me on. I always love talking about health literacy.
I know.
So when I spoke at Scope, the definition of health literacy really focused on a person's ability to understand and use health information. I am ecstatic that a few years ago, Healthy People 2030 changed the definition to recognize both personal health literacy, which is really a person's ability to understand and use health information, as well as organizational health literacy, right? And that recognizes the important responsibility that organizations have to make sure that they are creating materials, for instance, that people can understand. Because at the end of the day, health literacy is all about empowering people to make an informed health decision. It doesn't mean the quote unquote right health decision. It means an informed health decision.
Okay. And that's a key word. Okay. So I think I want to mention that. I think most of the people watching this are, I think they know us from Scope. They read clinical research news. They listen to our podcast, whatever. They are interested in the day-to-day reality of clinical research, clinical trials. So now we're talking about, okay, how has that definition changed? I think the bigger question is, especially right now, there's a weird environment going on, right? And it's kind of there's some negative stuff going on. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, a lot of positive things that were started as organizations, pharma organizations, and CROs who were performing the day-to-day reality. A lot of the stuff that they learned in COVID, it's been embedded things. There's some really good things happening, right? And I want to mention those things. So let's mention, why does it matter? So why does health literacy matter? I just alluded to the fact that it's not just a feel-good thing. There's a reality here. There's an operational reality. So let's talk about, why does health literacy matter first, and then we'll talk about trials.
Absolutely. So a lot of times when people think about health literacy in the context of clinical research, they think about specific documents, right? So, informed consent, right, is a great example of when we think about applying health literacy principles, right? So making sure that people who sign informed consent truly understand and consent to participation. Another example is regulation which came out of Europe a number of years ago around what's called lay summaries, right? Which is essentially summaries of the aggregate results of a clinical trial that are now available publicly on a website. All of that is incredibly important, but let's go even earlier. Right? And by the way, something that's really important is health literacy benefits everyone. So I don't care if you have a PhD or, quite frankly, even if you're a physician, when you receive a new diagnosis, it's overwhelming, right? Think about receiving a cancer diagnosis. As you may have an advanced degree, but all you can think about is, oh my gosh, what if I die? Or what about my kids? Or other things, right? And that's very real. And so people can have situational low health literacy, right? Which basically means clear communication.
Is that a term? Is that a technical term?
Yeah.
Situational health. That's really, really good. That's actually a good term.
Yeah. So I don't know the official term for it, but that's the idea, right?
No, I get it. So basically, it doesn't matter my skill set. In that moment, we have to admit that my judgment could be clouded. I might not. Okay. So so that in some case, so keep going, because I want to ask a further question.
Well, the other thing is that we also know. So for you and I, we receive a new diagnosis, right? Our family member, our friend, we have first of all, we recognize that we may have challenges with health literacy in that moment. But second of all, we have a need for information to be able to make informed health choices, right? While it is certainly true that statistically some groups are more likely to have low health literacy, for example, people age 65 plus, if English is not your first language, you statistically are at greater risk of having low health literacy. Doesn't mean you do. But we also know that people who have challenges with health literacy also can be empowered with information that is meaningful to them, that is ideally culturally sensitive, that is clear, right, to empower them. So when you think about health literacy and clinical research, right, again, we think about documents. Those are things that people spend a lot of time on. But let's think about even before a clinical trial, is a person aware of clinical research, for instance, right? And we think about things like unconscious bias of investigators. Again, every single one of us has unconscious bias. It doesn't make us bad people. It makes us people. How do we help potential investigators think about communicating in a more inclusive way with potential participants? A really important part of all of this communication is health literacy, right? So we're actually about to update our materials. We have them currently for investigators around teach back, around health literacy. Okay. And teach back, by the way, is something as simple as, instead of saying, do you have any questions, right? Going through the study and saying, do you have any questions is not necessarily helpful, but saying, what questions do you have? I just want to confirm I was clear. What are you going to go home and tell your partner, tell your spouse, tell somebody, right? And so health literacy is essential in communication with potential investigators. And again, there's a lot that pharma can do to help to improve those communications. It's essential for our own documents, but it's also important for understanding a person's journey, right? So for example, in some areas, a person may not be diagnosed for many years. Oftentimes that journey is fraught with communication challenges, right? Somebody has dismissed their systems. Somebody has said, oh, you only feel that way because you weigh too much, right? That's why you're having pain, for instance. And actually, no, there's things going on that, may not be appreciated or recognized. So health literacy is essential. And from a very practical perspective, health literacy is an essential tool for, to think about clinical trial enrollment, but also retention, right? If a person doesn't understand what they're signing up for, what does the study entail, for instance, right? Then again, you're more likely to have that person drop out. And so, as a pharmaceutical company, we must think about health literacy in all aspects of a person's journey. We also must make sure that we're asking people, potential participants, patients, for their perspective, right, on communication. What are the words they're using, for instance? Are we using those words? Are they words people recognize? And, as a very simple example, we had a trial years ago and the clinical trial brochure was for older people with X, and nobody was signing up. And we changed it to people age 65 plus.
That's funny. I'm not old.
My mom's 79. She does not consider herself old, right? And so this person-centered focus.
That's fun. Okay, so you said a few interesting things. I agree that, I think if I went around the exhibit hall at Scope in 2020, and I just randomly asked a lot of my executives, hey, what does health literacy mean to you? And they would have probably said more towards informed consent. I don't know. I'm just guessing. I think it's more practical, right? But I think what you're saying is these other issues you're mentioning are of great interest to all of our people who attend Scope, our communities, but they don't always call it health literacy, right? They'll say, we all need to do a better job of making the community aware of clinical research, overall awareness in this community, with that community. Okay, great. There's also the idea of, okay, we got to support our patients, understand their journey. The earlier we engage them, the better. Again, that's discussed at Scope. That goes under literacy. You mentioned also investigators and then organizations. And all of this is, so it shows that the concept And your definition, and the definition really, if you're an organization thinking about this holistically of health literacy, is much broader. And in some ways, there's a part of me that listens to this, and it also sounds like common sense and a regular old fashioned, like, how do you market things effectively? Marketing's a terrible word, but you're trying to convey information and you want people to absorb it and hear your message. But we have this second layer to this, which is, I'm not selling a pair of shoes. Hey, I got shoes. Do you want to buy them? Yes. No.
Yeah.
There's a conversation happening. If this person really understands what you're saying, they might have something to tell you, and then you can improve, and on it goes. So the opposite of a document is a static thing. So I think what you're talking about is a philosophy, and an overall approach and a strategy. And it's never static.
Correct.
And
you're never done
going. You're never done. Yes. Okay.
Never done. There are always new opportunities.
Yeah.
All right. And even the best intentioned people who are champions of health literacy, if they're not working together, say we have materials across different indications for a product, somebody may say it differently than somebody else, but at the end of the day, we really should be talking to one another, right?
Yeah.
And that's another thing, is how within our own organization do we share best practices? Because at the end of the day, let's not confuse people by saying the same thing 17 different ways when we really mean the same thing, right? And by the way, I'll put in a plug. Merck has shared publicly a over 1,000 term health literacy glossary.
Cool.
And that has been developed with includes a number of clinical research terms. We have had the feedback of over 600 people who belong to what we call our employee business resource groups. So these represent various aspects of diversity. So for instance, the Rainbow Alliance, the Women's Network, Leave Employees of African Descent, and others. People volunteer to give their feedback on a term. And so we take not only health literate definition, but by this process aim to really have a culturally sensitive lens. And so I am happy to share that. It is an incredible resource. Again, why reinvent the wheel?
Let's when we post this interview, if you could comment and put that in there. Cool.
Perfect.
All right. This is good. I'm glad we talked. We were talking anyway, but it was good that we recorded this. I think in some cases we're preaching to the choir, and that's fine. In other cases, I think people are working indirectly in this space, and hopefully we've given them a little bit more of an aha moment. I think it's really exciting. And really quick, say the name of the document again that you just said that we're going to try to upload. It's probably a PDF, right? What is the name of it?
No, it's actually a website. So
it's a website. Okay.
It's our company's health literacy glossary.
Health literacy. Okay. We'll link to that. Cool. Good to see you, Laurie. Thank
you. Can't wait to see you in a few months.
Exactly. See each other at Scope. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye.